Hey everyone, welcome to Freedom Academy. And once again, my name is Katie Brenner, also known to many of you guys as KTBHAiR. And I am really starting to enjoy these Wednesdays of education because it's not just education of technique, but it's me giving you guys advice of, what works for me in my studio and everything that's going on. And so let's just dive into it. The first part that I want to talk about is our mindset and setting goals and why that is so important as a stylist for us to keep growing, to keep developing. And you know what also happens on top of growth and development is income, which is also going to set us up for a better life, more stability. And how do we achieve that when we are behind the chair with A, without getting burnt out, and B, kind of like trying to figure out where you're going? How I started it with setting my goals is every year I set goals. And I remember when I was a junior stylist, baby stylist, I came out and my first goal, I wanted to work with an icon in the industry. And so that was Charlie Price. And I went to his website and I looked on his website and I emailed him and I kept talking and talking and talking to him. And finally, Charlie invited me to go do a photo shoot. And after that, it gave me the mindset of, okay, it might seem way out there, a crazy goal that I want to achieve, but I'm going to write it down. I'm going to follow through and I'm going to see where it takes me. Because that step that I took to go and eventually become Charlie Price's assistant for 4 years was one of the best choices I did. And each year I always set up goals. It's kind of like, some people, they do vision boards. I do those. It's the same thing, but for your career. It's the best way for us to still get enjoyment out of being hairstylist and not just like waking up, going to the salon, doing your thing. It's going, okay, what can I do that's going to give value to myself and my career and keep me growing and going? So I want you guys to sit down because we're getting close to end of year. I can't believe how fast this year has gone. I want you guys to sit down and I want you to see where you're at in your career, whether you're just starting, 20 years in, 30 years in plus, and evaluate where you're at. And I want you to write down what you're struggling with. And then what is making you perhaps not like going to the salon or your studio, what you're struggling with your clients. Write it all down. Now we're going to write goals, and those goals are going to be how we're going to fix that stuff. And we're going to write those goals. Then after you write those goals, it's kind of like writing a story. That's how I write everything. It's, okay, I'm going to make sure I put boundaries with my clients. I am going to come up with an entire list that I'm going to email out to my clients. And this is what they're going to go by. That's how I write it out for each goal that I want to do. Yes, write down your goals. So that has helped me a lot with getting in the right mindset. I also want you guys to write down goals, personal. How many of you guys have gone on a vacation? I remember in the beginning of my career, I was like, how many years has it been since I've been on a vacation? And we are not counting time with family, like flying to go see family and stuff. I'm talking about going to Cancun or going to the mountains or anywhere you want for yourself. I want you guys to write down goals of vacation and places that you want to go for next year. And what's going to happen is they're going to go hand in hand. Once you start to get those goals in your career, that's going to go back to your personal life. And that's going to create a really good balance for you. That is what has worked best for me. And it's like, I just got back from Disneyland. It was amazing. But for me to go on that trip, I had to set some goals because Disney's not cheap. I had to set some goals to make sure that I could achieve that and I could give that to myself and to my girls and my husband. And as hairstylists, the potential of income that we are able to make, whether you're in a small town or you're in a big city, is big. I have one of my friends, and she's gorgeous, Samantha. She lives in a very small town, but she is one of the biggest influencers and hairstylists that is out there right now. And even though she's in a very small town, people drive hours to go see her because she has set goals, set herself up for success. She's made her reach bigger with her social media. So she's pulling in clients from hours away to pay her prices. Then those prices are paying her personal stuff to go on vacations or, buy stuff for yourself. It's this full cycle that you have to really follow and stick to. And that is the joy of what we do. Now let's get into some nitty gritty on the business side. So I get lots of questions about starting up my business and as a studio owner. So I own my studio, and I've had my studio for 8 years now. And moving into my studio was very scary, especially coming from, I've been commission, I've been booth rent. When I was a commission salon and I left there, they kept my client list. And when I left there, I went to a booth rent with 0 clients. I was literally paying to work. It was scary. And then I wasn't finding the environment that I wanted to be in. And so the best option for me was to have a studio. And that goes into happy life, happy balance. My studio, I created the furniture, the experience, from the music to how it feels. And I really value that. And so do my clients. So when I come to work, I'm so happy. So I want you guys to make sure that the salon you're showing up to or the studio you're showing up to, you get that happiness. Not every day. We have bad days. I'm not saying every day, but I'm saying you like where you're at. And it can take some trial and error. Before I got to the studio I'm currently at, let me count in my head. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Oh, 8 different places until I found my studio. And I felt so defeated because I'd be so excited, like, this is my place, these are my people, this is what I'm going to find. And I got really discouraged. It contributed to me almost quitting hair several times, because if you're not in the right space, you're not going to be in the right mind space. So that's another goal that you need to make sure you're writing down on your goal list is your work environment. Is your work environment a good environment for you? And if it's not, how are we going to change it? How did I find mine? Well, I jumped from salon to salon, and then I went to a Sola studio. That was my first studio that I opened up, and I loved it. But the downside, it didn't have a window. I felt like I was working in a cave because, like, some days I'd go in and it's bright outside, and then I'd come out and it was nighttime outside. So then I was like, maybe I should go back to a normal salon. So I went to a normal salon for like a year. That's all it lasted. I missed having and creating my own space, especially as a creator. I always had my tripod up. I'm taking photos. Any of the salons I was at, I got dirty looks. Stylists didn't like it. And it happened again. So then I found my studio I'm currently at. It's Solera Salon Studios. And I did tour after tour. It was like I was hunting for a new house. I set up tours. I looked at distances on the maps. I went and looked at reviews, and I really did my due diligence. And I love my space because it's a studio. I have a massive window. That was like number one for me. It takes up the whole entire one of the walls. And I wanted to have a bigger studio. So one of the stylists I was at the salon that I was at for that year in between, she came with me. And She's phenomenal. She is 71. She looks like she's 50. She runs marathons, plays golf. She's like my big sister. But it was this perfect scenario. I looked at her and I was like, do you want to come with me to a studio? And she was like, yeah. And she loved the fact of the window. I have 2 chairs. Then what I love is some studios, they don't have management on site. I wanted to have somebody on site because your water might go out, heat might go out, that stuff happens. And when I was at my other studio at Sola, they don't have that. They have, it's like a property manager, but they're traveling. So if something happens, you might have to wait. So I love that my building has that. And she's the sweetest. And her office is almost direct from mine. So anytime I need anything, she is right there. And also with my studio, it has free Wi-Fi because my clients are always working in the chair. And then the biggest perk is when my clients walk in, there's a big cafe. It's like a mini Starbucks. And the girl up front is sweet. If anyone's like, I don't know where I'm going, she helps direct them. So if you are looking for a studio space, make sure you're finding those little details instead of just jumping in to that first one. Because like I keep repeating, that space that we work in, it's important to us. It's a very, very, it's our space. It's like our home, my home. I want it to feel good. I want it to feel safe. So when I'm working on my clients, for me to perform at my best, I need to have that environment around me. And I've been fortunate enough to create that. And if you guys have any questions, I know a lot of the studios and they're national that are all around. If you're looking or need help, send me a DM directly, or you could put it in the comments below. But that is what has truly helped me with finding my own space. And then what we come to, so we've talked about goals, setting those goals, personal and business, then setting ourselves up for success, finding the right space to be in. It's all about this boss mindset. Like you're in control. You're in control. If you're going to sit there and complain about something you don't like in your life, go change it. And as a stylist, like I said, I almost quit several times. And I never thought I would be a hairstylist, you guys. I was a horse trainer prior to hair, and I was the biggest tomboy. And getting into hair, it was kind of like I fought it the whole time. I really had to grit and bear, and I'm so thankful that I did, because our career is now looked at as we make the same money as an attorney and doctors. They're doing different stuff, but we're doing art. We're in charge of somebody's confidence. And a lot more to them. A lot of our clients, they're coming in and telling us stuff that they're not telling anyone else. So not only are we doing hair, but we are best friends to tons of people, all of our clients. So make sure you're also charging your worth. Let's get that boss mind going. This is all tied into each other. Now, when it comes to charging your worth, the first thing I was looking at when I moved into my studio was, how much do I charge? So the first thing I did is I went and I looked at salons that were close by and what they were charging, and I based my prices off that. That's not what you should be doing. Not at all. Because say I was somewhere that's in a small town and the salon down the street is only charging $15 for a haircut. Should I charge based off that, or should I charge based off my education, my experience, and the value I'm giving them when they come in? So are you in a beautiful salon? Are you in a beautiful studio and you're going above and beyond? All of that is really tied in. It's like, the difference between, say, going into like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, and then you're going into, say, Walmart. One or the other isn't wrong, but the experience you get is different. And so that's why they charge accordingly. So if you're elevating yourself and getting that education, you need to look at your prices and make sure you're going, okay, I am undercharging. I need to really evaluate what I should be charging. You need to look at what your costs are. You need to look at what all your overhead is. Like I have to pay for a toll pass to get in and out of my work. And so I have to put that in. I put in every little thing. And then I put goal, what I want to make for the year. Okay. And take that goal and break it down and charge that. I switched to charging a la carte. Then I did, balayage, half head, full head. And then I switched to hourly because that seemed to work the best for myself. And it goes back to my goals. What did I want to make for the year? Well, by doing hourly, it set me up for that with that math, that whole equation, and having that boss mindset. So I want you guys to also go when you are setting your goals and looking at stuff that you don't like, what are you currently charging? And I know so often it's easier to say, go raise your prices. It's easy because it's scary when you're sitting there and you're telling your clients, I'm raising my prices. You don't want to lose them because that's income to you. And then you're like, well, geez, how am I going to charge that? You know, I used to like emotional discount and I didn't come from much, I was the kid that didn't always have lunch at school. I was the kid that had hand-me-downs. So for me to sit here and charge $140 an hour is astonishing to me. But I can't think of me and who I was back then, that little girl, and discount emotionally to everyone because I feel bad. I need to charge what my worth is now. All the sweat, the tears, everything that I have done, I'm going to charge it. And if somebody doesn't like it and they have an issue, you can go down the street. But the thing that shocked me the most is I'm very blessed. I was like, I'm so booked out. Right now I'm booked till January. And I kept raising my price. I kept raising it and raising it and raising it. And I'm like, I'm not losing clients. And it's the culture, it's the environment, it's everything I've created that I've been talking to you guys about that my clients value so much. And those clients that value you will respect you the most. And I'd rather work on one client that's going to pay my price and value me than 10 clients that I'm going to give a discount to that are going to give me anxiety when I see them on my books. So really, really look into that on honing in your pricing and standing tall on what you are charging. If you are one that's nervous to face-to-face say it, great ways is like I use Vagaro booking system and it has a mass email. Any updates at my studio, I love it. Like for the holidays, I like to tell everyone happy holidays and I make sure I have everyone's email. So when there's a price change, I make sure I send that email out to everybody. And then I take my phone and say it's Sunday. The next week of clients, I make a copy and paste of, hey, I value you so much. I'm sure you got the email, but I wanted to make sure that you did receive it and my prices are going up in so much. If I'm not within your budget, I totally understand and I can help find you a stylist that is. Easy peasy, text it if it's hard for you to talk about it. If you have clients that you're more comfortable with, I usually like to do it, once I'm finishing or curling, like, hey, just so you know, before you pre-book later today, once I'm finished with you, I am going to have a price increase. So if we need to change your pre-booking accordingly, we can. And especially with the economy that we are in, you guys know going to the color store, it's not the same price that it was, unless you're using rust color, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Even our foils, our gloves, everything costs so much. But I don't want you to sit there and tell your client, well, I'm raising it because, color's gone up, gloves have gone up. Just say my prices have gone up. You don't need to give any sort of explanation as to why. If you want to have a conversation because they bring it up, absolutely. But keep it short, sweet, and simple. So that is my whole little first part of the boss mentality for you guys. I hope you guys can take that, utilize it, and really put it to good use. Like I keep preaching and I keep pinching myself. Like where you can go in this industry is absolutely incredible. So do not pigeonhole yourself. Don't work too hard. Don't burn yourself out. Like, let's set these goals. If you guys need help with setting goals, we're here at the Academy to help you guys. I'm here at your guys' full access for anything you need. If you need help with finding that right salon environment, I have so many hair besties around the nation. I'm sure I can help find you and pair you with somebody that's amazing. If you're just opening up a studio and you need help or guidance, come and reach out to me. Or if there's specific things you guys want me to talk about on here that are the business side or techniques, comment, let us know. And I'll come on here, say it's like, how do I start up an LLC, S Corp, taxes, CPA? It's the business side. We aren't taught in beauty school, and I've had to learn. So there's a lot more. And each Wednesday, I'm going to keep giving you guys little tidbits that has helped me become where I'm at. And I feel very fortunate and happy to where I am at right now. And I love seeing, Angelina, hi, gorgeous. I love seeing you guys all on here right now. It's making my day. All right, now it's time for the technique. And last week I showed you guys different curls you could do. And as you see, I don't have any mannequin behind me. I'm going to talk color because color, I love, 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 love. And I'm going to go over some color theory. I'm going to talk about breaking the rules. And then I'm going to also talk about and debunk, a lot of people are, it's back and forth. We'll just leave it at that with, the cowboy copper, the Bronco blonde. Why can't we just call it this? I want to get into that conversation as well with color. So if you are familiar with Rusk, this is just going to be a refresher. If you are new to Rusk, I'm going to kind of just do a skim through on the color line and what I use and why I use. And then I'm going to get into formulations, especially with fall right now. It's the changing of the seasons. It's the perfect time to start playing and having fun with the new colors that are out. And we all know every single fall, it is warm tones. And it's warm tones because we think of fall leaves, at least that's what I think of. And the leaves that you see, the inspo I use is the tones. You have the coppers, the copper red. So I'll talk about all of that. So what I'm going to show you guys first is, if you haven't seen it, Rusk has their new color book. I love this bad boy because it is compact. It's little. It's not huge. So you can store it easily, especially in a studio like mine where storage is very limited. Having this little color book is very nice. Now, whenever I bring out my swatch book to my clients, a little tip, I never tell them this is what your hair is going to be. I say, okay, this is me just to gauge what you like. This is done on white swatches. This is not what your hair is going to turn out. A lot of times I don't like to bring this out unless I have to show them because they're not getting it even when I'm showing them my social media page and tones. So that's my little tip there. So Rusk has their Deep Shine Permanent line. That line I use. It's a really beautiful line. It has tons and tons of colors. I'm not going to get too much into that one because it is such a big line and I have about 35 minutes with you guys. What I really want to talk about is I'm going to go over the lighteners, the 10-minute color, and the glosses because those are also what I use all the time in my studio. So when it comes to lighteners, I specifically love to use, let me not knock down everything on here. I like to use Ultimate Blonde. I foil and hand paint with Ultimate Blonde. It is a powder lightener, blue powder lightener, and it's going to give you up to 9 levels of lift. What I love about it is if I mix it 1-to-1 with a dash more, it's perfect for hand painting. It gives great lift. I used to use only clay lighteners and I was struggling with the lift. So switching to a more traditional lightener has been a game changer with my hand painting. With foils, I'm going to use a 1-to-2 mix ratio, and it just is a really great lift. Even if I wasn't with Rust, this would be my go-to. Use it every day, all day. Now, the Ultimate Blonde powder has its sister. Where is she? Here she is. So this is Deep Shine Ultimate Blonde. This is an oil-based cream lightener. I will use this if I'm doing a on-scalp application, or say they have some really fragile hair showing up with damaged hair. This is the luxury bad boy that's going to really nourish the hair for them and take care of them, and you're not going to have to stress about it at all. Now, the other lightener that I want to make sure I give love to, let me bring her out, is Bright White. Bright White is up to 7 levels. I do use her. I like to foil with her. When I want to change it up, I will use Bright White. But ultimately, Ultimate Blonde powder is my favorite. But I do use all 3. You want to make sure you're using the lightener that your client needs. So whatever their needs are is what you need to use and grab for your lightener. It's not a one size fits all. Not at all. If you do that, you're going to have a lot of breakage and damage. After lighteners, well, let me get into lighteners a little bit more. I want to talk about developers with lighteners. This is my biggest pet peeve, and some people love it and some people hate it. I do not use anything over a 20 volume in foils. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. And I'm not going to use heat. I work on a lot of Latinas. I have a lot of Latinas. And when I was younger, I would go, let's go fast. Let's get in there. Let's use that 40. And I just couldn't get them past that orange, that blonde orange. And I'm like, oh, and then their hair was just getting drier and it wasn't good. Dropping that developer to a 20 or a 10 or a 0, they're going to be sitting there longer, but it's going to lift longer. When you look at your developers, when we have 0 lift, 10, 20, 30, 40. Now, what those developers do is like 40's that fast and that quick, can run real fast, but shuts off. And the more you drop down, it's going to keep going. Like 0 lift and 10 vol, they can run a marathon for you. They're going to keep lifting and lifting for you really low and slow. And it's going to help keep the hair really healthy. When you pair those with the correct lightener, you are going to get that beautiful clean lift that may not even need a toner or gloss on it. And then you're keeping the health of the hair. If you're frying that hair, when you go and put that gloss on, it's going to look good. But in 1 and 2 washes, that hair is going to drop it. Because think of the cuticle like shingles on a roof, okay? When we blast it open and you put a toner into it, how is that pigment going to adhere? It's not. So when you slowly open it and that pigment goes in, it has somewhere to sit and rest. So low and slow. If you guys have taken any of my classes, I always say it's like a good pot roast, low and slow. It's going to get you there. Don't use heat. Put a towel over their head. Like I'm in Colorado, so in the that I love, it can get cold. So I'll put a towel over them. And then especially, when you're foiling around the front and the back neckline, my little tip is get some cotton. I have a big box, that you use for like perms. Get cotton, put it underneath their front foils. And then on the back, either take a towel and lift it up underneath their back hairline foils or put the cotton back there. So it's going to slow down the process on those front foils because they process like that because they're resting on the head, on the face. And they're under all of that. So it's hard to pull them. So lift them up and your client will thank you because half the time, they are sweating with that foil sitting on their face. I can't count how many of my clients, they've had like little sweat drops coming off and I've lifted up. They're like, oh, thank you. So use that little tip when it comes to lightning. Just be aware of your process. There's no need to speed and push. When I hand paint, I might jump up to 30 or 40, but that's if I'm only doing open air. Okay. If I'm hand painting, my go-to is usually a 20 volume because it's just going to keep lifting and it's stronger than that 10 volume for me. And it's going to get me where I need. Open air is when I have that client that's just wanting that soft little sun-kissed look. Open air dries out quicker. And since it's going to dry out quicker, you need a lightener that's going to get you there quicker, but not too quick because it's drying and processing. So that's why I'll jump up to the 30 or 40. So those are my great tips when using lighteners and Rusk lighteners in general. If you guys have any questions, put them down below about lighteners, or you can always access me on my Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook. I'm on them all. All right, next up we're going to get into is the line that brought me to Rusk. So that is Ruskin 10. So last year I was Ruskin 10 specialist. I use this every day, all day, playing with it. 10-minute collar has become a game changer to our industry because I was double booking. We're getting back to the business side. I was double booking. I was running myself into the ground because it was like gray root touch up. You know, you put it on, put her over there, put on the next gray. But say Sally is 15 minutes late and you're putting Sandy's collar on, you're behind. So using the 10-minute collar, I no longer double book. My gray coverage girls are now booked. Well, I do everything on the hour. They're booked as a 1-hour service. And the value my clients are getting that 1-hour service. So I told you guys I'm charging $140 an hour. I think that's a lot. But if you have a great client that's coming in every 4 to 6 weeks and they're just getting their roots, then say every third appointment, they're getting the works, the highlights. And the works cost a lot more because that's taking me 3 to 4 hours. But those gray root touch-ups, they're no longer in my chair for an hour, 45, maybe 2 hours, depending how stubborn the gray is, how much hair they have. Now they're coming in for just 1 hour. They're getting their gray roots done in 10 minutes. Then I'm grabbing and I'm refreshing their mids and ends, and I'm adding express gloss into whether, if they're brunette, I'll use the 7N or 6NW, or I'm adding it into a deep shine demi, and that's speeding up the process. So they're getting gray roots, they're getting a gloss. Then I use the 2-minute mask, deep conditioning treatment. I can get a trim done and a blowout. Think of the value your client's going to get, and they're not going to complain that you're charging that hour. And especially when they get the works done, they're like, I've been saving money. So those that are coming in more often, you're giving them a ton of value. With Ruskin 10, it is not a progressive color. So what does that mean? It's not going to get darker on you. And what I'm going to show you guys, I take this to the classes I teach at, and I hope it shows up great on the screen for you. So what I have here is it's kind of showing up. It's much brighter than what it's showing. So this is a level 7N Ruskin 10. This was left on the hair. Let me move it. There we go. It was left on the hair for an hour. Here's a competitor's. We don't say competitors' names, but another competitor's 10-minute color. That's black. Okay. Majority of 10-minute colors are progressive. So that means after that 10 minutes, they're just going to keep getting darker and darker and darker, and you're going to have a color correction on your hands. With Rusk, it's not going to do that. It might get a half a shade darker on you, so be aware of that, but that's going to happen with any color that you're leaving on past an hour. And then I have these swatches to show you guys right here. So I did a time lapse of the Ruskin 10. I have 10, 30, and then an hour. And you can see that it just kind of gets a little bit more depth in it. This one's the 10 minutes, and then the end one is an hour. So it's slowly going to darken on you. But the beauty that I love in it is I can use it with any of my balayage or my creative colors. You know, I have that girl coming in. I just knocked over all my color. I have the girl coming in who needs the works. She's been coming in for her gray roots. Now she's ready for the works. So guess what? I'm going to put my Ruskin 10 on her, and I'm going to use it just like my traditional Deep Shine Permanent. But I only need to keep my Ruskin 10 stored at my studio because I have limited storage. So that's why it's my primary color that I use for permanent, because it works just like a permanent color or an express service 10-minute color for you. With Ruskin 10, it is American level system. This is something I say over and over. If you're new to hair, I want you guys to be aware there's European level and there's American level. And you need to know what level system the color line that you're using is utilizing, because European has many more levels to it. American has less. So say you're using a European line and you want to try Ruskin 10. One of the most popular levels is level 5 and 6. Say you go to use a level 6, and that's usually what you use in European. You put it on, you're like, it's not dark enough. It's opaque. Well, that's because that level 6 you're used to in European is actually a level 7 in American. So drop one level when you are working with Ruskin 10. And then the other tips I like to tell you guys with Ruskin 10 specifically, because this was a hot thing on social media when I posted it. So I have to make sure I cover it as just Russ, because other brands are different, is our developer is not how we get our coverage. Our developer is not how we get our coverage. I was taught in beauty school, like many of you, that the only way to get our gray coverage was 20 volume. I think it was in many of my quizzes too. However, with Ruskin 10, if you want more depth, more like pigmentation, use a 10 or a 0 lift. Remember how I talked to you guys how with the lighteners, the 40 is like that fast getting there. So think of when you add a developer to a color that has pigment in it. We're not talking lightener, we're talking actual pigments. And say you put that 40 into your pigment, it's going to eat through that pigment faster than a 10 volume in the time that it's on the head. So if I'm wanting a brighter color and I'm not doing it at the roots and I'm doing like mids and ends and I want some brightness, I'm going to use that 30 and 40 because I want it to kind of eat through some of that depth. I want it to be brighter. But if I'm wanting to get more depth, more of that coverage, that's when I'm going to reach for my 10 or my 0 lift. And the flip side, we get our coverage from our tube of color. Okay. So say your client is 50% gray. Easiest formula for me to come up with. They're 50% gray, level 6. How would I go about covering this? I would do 6N with 1-to-1 mix ratio, because when you have stubborn gray with Ruskin 10, use 1-to-1 mix ratio. And then I'm going to use a 0 lift on it. And that's going to give me more depth. But say I want ash, then 50% of that formula has to be N or NN. And the other 50% can be your targeted level that you want, your tonality that you want. So make sure when you're mixing in your bowl, however, how much gray they are is how much N or NN you're putting in. Then if you're wanting to add ash or red or whatever color you're wanting to add, you're adding the remainder of it, whether it's 10%, 20%. There's finders on the swatch book to help you evaluate how gray they are. I typically do not like to get too crazy with my formulas. There's no need for it. It's just going to drive you nuts. You're typically not going to have consistency in it. So I stick to the N series with Ruskin 10. It's a cooler feel to it. And unless it's a client that like they hate that warmth, the brunettes, that ashen, then my next hot tip is a anchor color. Anchor color. I hadn't heard of this before. And in a class, I finally found out what an anchor color was, and it has been an epiphany. So an anchor color is a color that you can add to your formula to help just give a little bit more of that oomph, that pigment, that depth. But say you don't want too much. We're working with a level 6. and Sally's in your chair, and usually that level 6N works on everyone, but it's not working on her, but you're scared to take her to that 5. Take a ribbon of 5 and put it in your bowl. That's going to anchor it. Or say a ribbon of an ash or a ribbon of something that you need to add more in, but you don't need that level. That is your anchor color. That's going to be your BFF if you need any help. And just a little tip to help you as well. Now with the mix ratios with Ruskin 10, like I said, 1:1 is for stubborn grays, 1:2 is your normal. Okay. So those are your mix ratios. Next up is the coolest tool in the Ruskin 10, and I have her right here. It is Boost. Boost is phenomenal. I use it for gray coverage. I use it for high color. Say I want that cowboy copper and I want it bright. I'm going to use Boost. Boost is going to raise the alkaline. And what does that do? Raising the alkaline swells the cuticle a little bit more. So say you have that really stubborn and you can't get it open because it just won't open for you. Well, you're going to raise the alkaline of that hair and it's going to open it up just a little bit more. So you're going to get more deposit and more pigmentation. You can use Boost on its own if you're wanting to use it to like remove tone or even brighten. I've used it on the front a little bit with like a few highlights on my like natural gray girls that just want a few, just like it bumps it just a little bit. When I'm adding it to my gray coverage, a ribbon. And if you have a rust color bowl, and I don't know if other bowls, but I know specifically with Rusk, you know, when you look at the bottom of color bowls, it has like the numbers because that is how you can do ribbons. So one ribbon from one side to the other side of your color bowl is 5 milliliters. Little hot tip. So when you're weighing out your developer, you know how much. So I'll add 1 ribbon of this to my gray coverage. And this is like my, ooh, she's got stubborn hair. She needs a little bit more lift. Boost. She's my go-to. And then she's also my go-to for my bright reds, my coppers. And I just kind of play with the amount I want to add into. And I always keep track of all my formulas. And in my booking system, Vigaro, it allows me to digitally save it in there to them. So when I am playing, I weigh everything out. That's the only way for you to stay consistent. I put it in there and I'll play with different grams to kind of play with how much I want to like pull up or take back from each formula. So that is Boost. And we also have the High Lift Ash. You guys, a High Lift Ash in 2 minutes. It's beautiful. I hand painted it on my sister's hair, hand painted with it. And it came out gorgeous. So don't sleep on that one. Give it a try. And I always say swatch it. If you haven't used Rusk, go get some swatches on Amazon. You can get gray swatches and normal swatches and swatch and play. Or if you've been with Rusk forever, go play with some different formulas with the Rusk intent. Okay. Next up is the demis, the glosses. I refer to toners as glosses. Just like I don't say bleach, I say lightener. When I'm working on a client to say I'm using bleach on your hair, it sounds like a cleaning product. So just like it can get confusing when I was a younger stylist, I'm like, well, what's a toner? What's a gloss? Well, it's the same thing. A toner, I think of a toner and a printer. So that's why I don't say toner. I say gloss. They're the exact same thing if you're a baby stylist. Don't stress yourself out. With Rusk, they have their Express Gloss and their Deep Shine Demi Gloss. When you're looking at the packaging, it will say, let me see if I can get it to see, that one's the Express right here, how it says that. And then you'll see this one's just the Deep Shine Demi. They play together. You can mix them together. How is that going to benefit you? Is I keep the Express in stock at my studio because when you're in a pinch or you're trying to rush, or heck, it's just a normal service and you don't want to keep your client's head there for 15 to 20 minutes for a gloss, I will add Express to it. So the Express has 9P, 7N, 6NW, and 9VR. They are progressive. Remember me talking about progressive. It's going to progressively get darker. So after that 5-minute mark, if you're using, say, 7N on its own, it's going to start to get darker. Okay. So say you're like, I need a darker root. I need darker than 7. I might need a 6. Sometimes I'll throw that 7 on and I just keep an eye on that root and I let it on for a minute or 2. Or I'll grab my level 6 in Deep Shine Demi, grab my level 7 and mix them together. Usually like equal parts. You just have to kind of play and you have to know your clients and how they deposit and how they take. If I have a really porous client that sucks up color, it's just a dab of Express, not a ton. You can mix equal parts of it and it's going to help speed up that time. I've also noticed with the Express, you have those clients that like you put a gloss on and you're like, it doesn't look like I put a gloss on. Like it still has that like orangey or that yellow tone, especially in the back here. Sometimes it's hard to get to. The Express, I've noticed when I add it into my demis, it gives that depth because even if you just add a little bit and you keep it on for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it really gets in there and deposits on those clients that you have a hard time with depositing on too. So that's what I love about Express. And I hope to see her grow one day into a portfolio. I do want to touch on the subject. If you do have the swatches for the Expresses, let me pull it up here. So with the Express glosses, there's 4 of them in the portfolio right now. And if you open up the swatch book, let me open it up. You're going to see that the 9VR looks a little scary and you're like, who would I use that on? Well, the 9VR that is in the swatch book, there it is. She is right there. See how purpley that is? Yes, the 9VR, if you leave it on for a long time, it can get to that. But a 9VR, I have her right here. This is 9VR. I keep going the wrong way. There's the camera. Look at how pretty that is. There we go. See, that is not purple. I love 9VR and 9P on my platinums. And then I use a dash, like a capful of 8A Deep Shine Demi. You know those smoky silver blondes? That is how I get the formula. It's this 9VR, 9P, equal parts, add 8A. If you want a lot more depth, add more than a cap. But that is one of my photos on my Instagram. She's one of my Latinas. She has that perfect smoky silver, and I wasn't able to achieve it until I came up with this formula. So keep that formula if you need a good platinum one. And the fact that I only have to leave it on, I leave it on a little bit longer. I leave it on for 8 minutes. 8 minutes on like a custom color. That's amazing. I've had times where I've had to twice, 3 times, sometimes gloss a client to really get that smoky feel because it's just not doing that. With the Express, since they progressively get darker, it gives that to you, which is beautiful. Yes, you can shop all of these at cosmoprofbeauty.com, or you can also go to ruskpro.com. They have all these colors on there, which is amazing. Okay, so next I want to get up to the controversial naming of colors, specifically right now is the Cowboy Copper. At first I was like, what is that? Why are they naming it like that? So essentially, as hairstylists, just like with the haircuts, some people really hate hearing butterfly, wolf cut, cowboy copper, bronco blonde. But this is what we do to bring the same thing and make it fun and exciting for our clients. We're not going to just say, you know, the butterfly haircut. What is it, you guys? It's a face frame haircut. It's the one where you bring it all forward, cut it, and when it drops, it gives the V. We all know that. And why do we call it the butterfly cut? Because it's fun. It creates something for our clients. So when we're looking at color trends, it can be intimidating sometimes, especially like when the mushroom colors came out. You're like, how do I make that? But if you guys look specifically at what you see in front of you. So when you're looking at Cowboy Copper, majority of them are a copper red. That's all it is. So don't try to overcomplicate these color formulas. Come up with fun names. Like I just did one yesterday. I've seen it a few times, so it's not my original. Bronco Blonde. It's so pretty. And I live in Denver, Denver Broncos. It's a beautiful fall blonde that I think is fun. And I think it's really fun to name these. But then I think also as a stylist, a colorist, you need to look at the tones that you see. So like my Bronco Blonde, it is literally Deep Shine Demi 9CG. So you got the copper gold. If you leave that copper gold on, this is stronger. But if you guys have seen me when I have my lighter version of my orange, that's that copper gold. It's so pretty. But say you have that client, which majority of them aren't ready for those vivids, that's when I will do 9CG. Then we have the gloss toners, the BB, BV, BN, beige blue, beige violet, beige neutral. I forgot those guys on here. I use them every day too. I mix them a lot with the Express. So those guys are based on a level 10. I will add the 9CG, BN, and then 9G Deep Shine Demi. Equal parts, all of them. It is gorgeous. Now, when it comes to how much you need to mix on a client, you know, I try to share what I use. I try to keep equal parts, 50-50, whatever. But you got to know the canvas in front of you. Do you have a super porous canvas that's going to suck it up? Then you might need to back off on one of the pigments that you know that your client's not going to like. And that's when you can pull out clear. There is Deep Shine Demi clear, and you can add that. Or I'll add in one of the gloss toners, the BB, BN, BV. I'll add those since those are based on a level 10. I'll add it and dilute it into my formula. Now, if you're not using one of the Express glosses and you're using Deep Shine Demi on its own, you guys got to let it sit. That is a very important value right here. And like I said before, if your client is so porous and you're scared to let it be on, use that clear, dilute it down. You are taking value away from your client if you don't leave it on. And they're going to be like, well, my gloss always washes off, because it's probably going to last them like 2 washes if you're pulling that bad boy off in 5 minutes. And if you're pulling off in 5 minutes, go get yourself the Express. If you're impatient like me, time saver. You know, I usually say 1 minute is equivalent to each wash. And with the Deep Shine Demi, just let it sit. Trust your formulation. You know, a big tip I have as well with formulas is, say your client's really wanting a level 9. You rinse them out and you're like, it's really warm, but we're going to put a 9, you know, ash on it. We're going to cut it a 9P. We're going to get in there, and you wash them and you're like, oh, it's so warm. Really look when you rinse out those highlights. What tones do you see? Do you see orange, which is a 7? Do you see yellow orange, which is an 8? Tone them to the level you see and have the conversation with your client. Be totally transparent. I put my expectations for them really low. Like, we may not get there. I might do this. So when I turn them and they see the mirror, they're like, whoa, this is perfect. I'm like, yes, we nailed it. So have those conversations and just full transparency when it does, so you can put the right level. Too often, a lot of colorists put a level 9 when that client should be getting a level 8 to control those warm tones that they are not wanting to see. And the warmest tones that you're going to see are level 6, 7, 8, because that's red, red, orange, yellow, orange, and orange. And so you need to make sure when you do rinse them, you're taking your towel, and I like to rub on the hair and really see what I'm seeing so I can mix. Never pre-mix your gloss, even if it's a client you do all the time. Don't pre-mix it. Wait until you rinse it, because you don't know. She may have gotten on a new medication, had a surgery, menopause, COVID, through stuff since you last seen her, and her lift isn't as predictable as you're used to it being. It has been a good night with you guys. I have talked all about color, and I could keep going nonstop. because there's also one more color line. We have the pure pigments that don't get as much love as they should get. And I'm going to be at World of Color with Cosmoprof doing some fun color there. So you guys have to stay tuned to see more love on these guys. Keep a little bit of that a secret. But it's been a fabulous night with you guys. And if you have any questions, if you need any support at all, a few of you on here know that I'm always here for you guys. I'm here to help you. I want to help elevate our industry. You know, taking my candle to light somebody else's candle isn't going to dim mine. And I want you guys to think of it the same way. Any support I'm giving you guys, if somebody else asks, pass it on. You know, let's keep sharing the love. Let's be support to one another, because this industry is changing right now. We're definitely in a shift. I grew up under old school educators. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a big shift and a change from that. And being a part of a community like this, where we can dial in together, we can talk to one another, we can give that support. That's what's needed right now. With the shift that's being seen, you know, there's really good stuff that's changing and there's not so good stuff. And so that's what I'm here to help support you guys through. So once again, I'm going to see you guys next week. If there's anything specific you want to see, send me a DM, comment below. This will be on Rusk's Facebook page on there. If you guys missed out the beginning part, all the boss mentality, you can catch that on there. But yeah, I will see you guys every Wednesday. Have a beautiful day. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.